Hello. Thank you for joining today's webinar, AI and Machine Learning for Omnichannel Retailers. Throughout today's presentation, you can enter any questions you have in the chat box on the bottom left side of your screen. We will set aside time at the end of the webinar to answer questions. If we do not get to your question today, a member of the Lucidworks team will reach out to you. Today's presenters are Lucidworks Technical Engagement Manager, Andrew Oliver, and Lucidworks Chief Data Engineer, Jake Mannix. Thanks for joining us today, Jake and Andy.
Thanks, Janessa.
Thanks, Janessa.
So as mentioned, this is a executive to team lead level talk. We're going to go into the business of retail and how AI technologies can be used to better serve customers and drive both online and offline conversations. We'll talk about where this fits into an omni-channel strategy and how we as retailers can continue to delight customers and adapt to an environment of technological change. As mentioned, I'm Andy Oliver. This is Jake Mannix from Lucidworks. We're going to delve into AI and machine learning for omni-channel retailers in just a moment. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about Lucidworks and our products. Lucidworks is a San Francisco company focused on advanced search. We think that search should be easy to implement and maintain, but also highly personalized. We produce two main product lines, Fusion, a platform for creating search applications, and our cloud solution, which is built on Fusion and allows you to connect your data and basically WYSIWYG out an application. I mentioned our cloud product as two applications about to launch for public consumption. The first is site search. This allows you to connect your web resources for public search. Site search provides customers with personalized search and recommendations. This is extremely easy to get started and connect. And because it is a software as a service solution, you don't have any maintenance or system level tuning. Launching later in the year is our enterprise search solution, which connects to your company's internal resources. It comes with all the connectors you need to provide your employees with a cloud-based internal search solution to help them be more productive. In many companies, losing your bookmarks folder is a career-limiting event. There are like 12 places to search, but no one has put together the information people need. Lucidworks' cloud-based enterprise search app allows them to have a single, attractive, AI-powered personalized search interface that actually finds things. All of this is powered by our flagship platform, Lucidworks Fusion. You can host Fusion on-premise or in the cloud. It can pull from hundreds of data source types from Oracle, DB2, and SQL Server to Box, SharePoint, Salesforce. Heck, Reddit uses it to pull from and search, well, Reddit. This is a highly flexible, secure, and extensible search solution to develop any search application imaginable. Included in Fusion is our engine for highly relevant search, AI, and a turnkey solution for quickly developing search applications, as well as analyzing search patterns and customers. Gone are the days of months of development just to make the UI. Gone are the days of figuring out what search analytics to pull. Fusion makes delivering highly personal search experiences easy to deploy and maintain. So enough of that. Let's get to the topic at hand. There used to be just retail and mail order. Then there was retail and online retail. Then retailers set up websites and ran those largely as separate businesses. The next wave was omnichannel, where we hit multiple channels for our customers. However, research and experience has shown us that the naive form of omnichannel, encouraging your in-store customers to go online and your online customers to go in-store, isn't necessarily a great idea. For the most part, customers who live close to a store tend to shop in store. Customers who live further away tend to shop online. Research has shown us that when we encourage our online customers to come into our stores, profits rise. Research has also shown that when we encourage in-store customers to shop online, profits tend to fall. Online customers are more price conscious, and in-store customers are more easily influenced and make more impulse purchases. Procter & Gamble came up with the concept of the moment of truth. In short, you come into contact with a product or brand, then you see it in the store and you buy it, and then hopefully you like it and advocate for it. This was nearly 20 years ago. Google responded a few years back after mobile and the web changed consumer behavior with the idea of the zero moment of truth. The zero moment of truth is where you research everything on the internet first. The zero moment of truth is really about search. In response to all this, McKinsey developed what they call the customer decision journey. Something makes someone realize they want to buy a product, they have an initial set of brands they consider, they go search on them, buy things, and have a good or bad experience, and hopefully buy them from the same store or brand again. But the customer decision journey is still a kind of traditional view. It's mainly advertising content moved online. You buy something or from someone, and hopefully then you want to keep coming back. In reality, this is still behind the times of consumer behavior. People like personalized experiences. They like us to recognize them in the store, online, on their phone, and in their marketing materials. So how do we personalize to customers? The first step in personalization is capturing behavior. Customers tell us something every time they come to our website or search on something absolutely. They tell us something anytime they come into our store, leave our store, empty-handed or otherwise, and anytime they make a purchase. We need to capture these customer events called signals, use them to make better recommendations, and to link both online and in-store experiences. It isn't an expectation to have a personal shopper follow you around the store, but the personal shopper should be embedded in the store itself, as well as the website, mobile, and any communications that we send. So while we have all the tools to make a more personal experience, we need to be aware that we're not the only ones thinking about this, and the enemy is thinking about our next move. The Empire will strike back, and while the Jedi returns, the First Order is relentless. If you need a validation of Omnichannel, or that having a store near the customer is a key advantage, Amazon just bought Whole Foods. Meanwhile, they've created an automated store. Everyone laughed. It didn't really work. So they created another one. No RFID tags, just cameras. This time, it actually works. There's only one person in the store to check IDs for boots. This may work in some places, but if I'm going to pay Whole Foods prices, I want to be able to ask a question and help finding something. Amazon beat us with better search and computer-generated recommendations based on our purchases. We can fight back with better search, better service, and a store that is closer. When I think of my buying patterns, I think about REI. I'll buy a lot from Amazon. I once thought I wouldn't buy clothes, but I tend to buy the same style jeans every time. I don't really need to try them on. The closest store is at the mall. I buy jeans from Amazon. However, when I buy cycling gear, I have questions. As a mammal, a middle-aged man in Lycra, I want to make sure my Lycra isn't too scratchy. So I go to REI. Someone is there to help me. I often search their website first. I tend to buy different things from them online than I buy in the store. Amazon will baffle me with hundreds of choices at varying degrees of quality. The reviews are either glowing or 1 star and barely readable. REI's site has reviews that tell me something. Moreover, the organization and search is much better for my needs. Whenever I want camping or cycling gear, for myself, I'm buying cycling shorts. I go to the store. I buy bike tubes often in the store, but often I'll buy Camelback bags or tubes and such online. If I don't know what I need, I ask. REI came to our last conference and spoke about how they use Fusion to deliver this experience. Well, today we're talking about Omnichannel. These technologies are also very helpful for online retailers. Bluestem Brands, who you may know as Fingerhut, is using Fusion and saw a major benefit. Search is just key to modern retail, and they've seen it in their Fusion adaptation. So what are sources of customer signals which go into this search? When a customer queries something, what do they click on? What things do they add to their cart? What do they return? What do they buy? These are all sources of signals of customer intention. So if you look at our analytics, I'm sure you've noticed that anyone coming in from a price comparison tool tends to just buy that thing and leave, and only if the price is the lowest. A large number of people coming in from Google do much the same thing. AI won't matter for most of these people. However, what about the people who do come back over and over again? If we make those people happy and optimize for our most loyal customers, that tends to make a bigger difference. Racing to the lowest price may not be our best path to profitability. The people that come back over and over are people we have the best information on. We can know these customers, and we can make suggestions. We can influence them. While our AI tools can make our overall site search better, it will make the best difference for our best customers. So our best personalized shopper strategy is to connect not just our web signals, but all the signals that a customer gets. This includes phone calls, mobile. Some stores are even able to track when a customer goes into the store. For our website, it is critical that our best results are on the first page. Most users won't scroll. If you look at this graph, most people click on one of the first 5 results. Anything after that might as well not be on the page. In fact, if you look at this eyeball tracking heat map, most people don't even look past the first result at all. So our search needs to self-heal. If it isn't working, if our only clicks are on the second result, then it should definitely be our first result. If we've got more than a few products, we can't do this manually quickly enough. This needs to just work. So I'm going to turn things over to Jake, and he's going to tell you about some of the more detailed things about signal boosting, how these recommendations and things work inside of Fusion.
Thanks, Andy. So yeah, when it comes to actually doing this automatic improvement of search results, the things that are in the second place that you really know belong in the first place, what we do is this thing called signal boosting. Fusion has this turned on by default. You capture your signals from the search application, and it automatically boosts results that kind of belong at the top, that are getting the most clicks for where they are on the page, up toward the top where they belong. Our very best result might not be the first one, but it will be soon after that.
So you have some great search results, but customers don't always make great queries or know exactly what they want. However, if you don't find it within 3 clicks, they probably will never find it. So research says that each step increases the chance they give up. If they hit the back button, they are more than 3 times as likely to give up. We don't want them to ever hit the back button. One way we can help them is to tell them that what they may have queried on instead. Google Trends is an example of this. If I go to search on trends.google.com on retail, in the lower right-hand corner, I get related queries on topics that I might have searched on in addition or instead. So if you want to you can add the same sort of capability to your site, and Jake will tell you more about that.
What we call this is queries for query. It's a recommender system that relates queries to each other based on click patterns. Fusion lets us have this on our site related to all of our products. If a customer searches on one thing, we can tell them other things that they might have searched on instead, based on the fact that other people did that. That's just one more way to keep them moving forward and never have to hit the back button. It's also a great piece of information for our search engineers. If a large number of people are clicking on an alternate query after searching on something, maybe that should be the first result. That should be the result for the first query in the first place.
And Jake, you were telling me about potentially even using this to not have to go to the page at all, to use this in auto-completion.
In particular, what this really means is that because the back end of Fusion AI is generating this list of related queries, it can be used in the user interface in multiple different ways, including having it just jump up as an autocomplete suggestion. So when someone's typing a query that we know tends to lead to not so great results, maybe it's always returning results that are out of stock or something, but you know there is a related query that which does have good results, actually just suggest that related query in the autocomplete, let them choose it before even making the other search that we know is not going to be so great. Then we've actually reduced the number of clicks that the user is going to do, we've reduced the chance that they're going to do a back, and then drop out of the funnel of your website entirely.
Excellent. So,
Fusion can also recommend not just queries similar to other queries, but items that are similar to other items. An item, this is using the Fusion can recommend items that are kind of more like this item when a customer clicks on an item's detail page. Maybe I want a red one, or one a different size, or maybe the exact same thing, but I had a different experience, a bad experience from the first brand I clicked on. This is a straight-up similarity search on the item's description. It's not AI, but it is super useful. It doesn't require any back-end programming. It just kind of works.
So the point of our
AI... Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that the point of our AI recommendations is to influence the user. We use their signal data in order to understand their preferences. And based on this, we can recommend items based on what other users clicked on. We'll go through a couple of the specifics. When you look at one item and it isn't the one you want, Fusion can recommend items that are based on what other users have clicked on, based on similar queries that led to that item, or added to their cart, or purchased, or all of the above. What this means is the items are similar to each other, not based on the content of their description or their title, or even the textual metadata of them, but the items are related to each other based on similar click patterns that users that are clicking on, searching for one kind of bicycle in the store, also tend to search for and click on and add to cart a different kind of bike, which then we learn this implicit relationship between all the items. And then maybe sometimes surprising things come up, but it's listening to your users in an automatic way. Items for user, this is the kind of traditional recommendations that people are used to thinking about in terms of the Amazon recommendations or Netflix movies for you. Most users to our site don't ever click on anything. the internet's default bounce rate is more like 70% on the low side. But for our best customers, we want to show them what they probably already want anyhow. Fusion can recommend items for a user directly based on similar users and their past behavior. These are hyper-personalized to this individual user's behavior. Everybody's recommendations are different, and they're completely based on how much we know about them. So it's really great for power users. It also drives personalized search. In addition to being recommended results that you just serve up as kind of a part of a widget on the screen that is results for you or recommended items, those same items can bias the search results of that user toward the things that they're most likely to purchase. If it turns out that things we were going to recommend for them already were going to show up somewhere in the search results, but maybe they're going to be on the second page for this particular query, we're going to pull them up toward the first page because for this particular user, they're more likely to buy this particular item. Me personally, I have no desire.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I have no desire for an Amazon Echo. I know that makes me a bit different. However, Amazon spams me with it relentlessly. I realize they want to sell these things, but surely after a while they realize that not only am I not interested in it, but I don't like the promotions that mention Echo. And there are probably a lot of other people like me that don't find any utility in it. Why don't they know me? Or rather, why haven't they connected their promotions to a recommender like Fusion's users for items? When I have an item and I want to promote it, this recommender will find the users most likely to be interested in the item that you can direct that out them. Fusion knows this. This is kind of taking items for a user and turning it on its head and saying, I've got an item, tell me which of all my users are most likely to be interested in it. Shifting gears a bit, in addition to recommenders, Fusion AI comes with a series of document and query classification systems. What this lets you do is automatically categorize and tag the items that are in your product catalog. Because customers aren't always very specific. They happen to be interested in maybe items that fit into multiple different categories. Document classification automates this for our inventory. Query classification does this and takes it one step further. Using the fact that items in your product catalog maybe are tagged as, in one part of the store, they're food, they're electronics, they're household items, they're produce. We use the past clicks and query histories of the users to learn in a similar way that document boosting for signals boosting boosts individual items related to a query that the past click history implies it's useful for. Query classification uses the fact that if you do a search for milk, in particular, it should be in the food section. So we help classify users' query and just make sure it's targeted in the right place. This can often lower the funnel of the number of facet filters your customers will use while navigating your site, because we're already predicting what facet filter they're going to be applying later on. When it comes to all the different kinds of things we can do, really this is just the beginning. We do a couple different kinds of things that are coming down the pipe and some that are kind of already out in beta test right now. Head and tail analysis is the way we try to analyze the difference between, in generally every e-commerce setting, there are the really, really common queries that show up all the time. We call them the head of the distribution. They are the top 100 or top 1,000 queries that are kind of happening hundreds or thousands of times a day. Then there are the really rare queries, the queries that only show up once and you've never seen them again. Head and tail analysis is trying to analyze the long tail of this distribution, the really rare queries, and kind of relate them back to the head of your distribution, the queries that are very common. Maybe a tail query is just a misspelling. Maybe it's adding on a color or a size, and learning from this behavior. We also have various sets of steps of doing query expansion in ways both related to textual expansion and query correction. And as we mentioned earlier, the kind of related queries type of thing. Coming up soon enough, we're having different kinds of clustering on your users, your data set, your document data set, deep learning, and even other approaches that we aren't quite ready to show right now.
So the bottom line here, AI and search are central to an omni-channel strategy, or modern retail in general. We can win customer relationships with signals, better search results, and machine learning tools. Sources of behavior are everywhere. Good search is just good service. So feel free to ask questions. I want to thank you so much for attending and letting Jake and I share some of the research that has been influencing me, at least for the last few years. And if you like this presentation, you might enjoy some of the additional resources on our website. We'd also be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. So let me just check. Do you have any questions, Janessa?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Jake and Andy, for that presentation. We'll now begin the Q&A portion of the session, and if we do not get to your question today, someone from the Lucidworks team will reach out to you. Looks like we have one question here. They ask, what type of user information does Fusion collect in order to surface relevant products to certain shoppers?
You want to take that, Jake, or do you want me?
Sure, I can take that. So the types of information are pretty varied for what Fusion can take and make use of. But at a base level, the kind of main thing we try to take advantage of to do personalization is some sort of opaque user identifier. It could just be a long-lived cookie on the site. It could be a logged-in user ID that actually you can further link with, off-channel information like email and thus their purchase history. But really, some user identifier at a base level, the search queries they're doing, and then the actual information, the raw signal events that they're going to be doing, like the clicks, purchases, add to carts, returns, the signal events themselves. But really, we don't need you to take any demographic information. It can be used, but it's really not required. I hope that answers your question.
We have another question. Signals normally have a huge amount of data. How are those stored? Well, I can answer that. So Fusion, yes, takes in signals, but is also able to do something called signal aggregation. So if you think of a query click signal, so we've got a query that was run and an item that was clicked, and you get one of those per second per n number of users. Fusion regularly rolls those signals up into an aggregate signal that would just say the query, the item ID, and the number of clicks on that item. So that's sort of a good explanation of how Fusion aggregates those. Another person asked how Fusion collects signals. So there's a REST endpoint that you're able to post to if you write your own search UI. If you're using App Studio, a lot of this is automated for you. So it'll actually instrument the application that you put together with App Studio directly. Obviously, for Omnichannel, you'll have other places that may need to post to the REST API as well. Ultimately, these get stored up as a collection in Fusion.
And I guess it should be mentioned that as Fusion is kind of an open core system, there's kind of many ways to do this. Obviously, especially as Andy was saying, the omnichannel nature of this particular presentation, we would be remiss in not mentioning that pulling in data that comes in from some click tracking system totally separate, or a purchase order system that maybe makes CSV files or database calls, you can post to the REST endpoint. There's also ingestion we can pull via just crawling a local CRM, or we have connectors. Because this is just data that lives like the data in our index, all of our regular connectors can pull in signal data as well. As long as we kind of work with you to figure out what the format is, it pretty much can get its way in there.
Excellent. So I have another question here about what algorithms and how do the item for item, user for item, and other recommenders actually work?
Which can you say? So you want to know details of? I think it's probably something we could follow up offline. Under the hood, the recommenders are in general based on some math known as alternating least squares, matrix decomposition. Probably a bit more in detail for this presentation, but we'd be happy to follow up offline, and we can talk through the details of the math of it if you really want to know.
Outstanding. So I'd like to mention that we talked about head and tail analysis and some of that sort of stuff. There will be a presentation in a little bit about head and tail analysis that'll go into more detail. Another person has asked whether Lucidworks can crawl SharePoint online with ADFS on premises. Yes, we can crawl SharePoint online. I'm not sure. I'll have to have somebody get back to you about whether you can have a SharePoint online, but Active Directory Federation services on premises. I do know that we have ADFS support recently added, but I don't know whether that specific combination works, but I'll have someone get back with you. Another person asked, how difficult is it to revert to Lucidworks from another search engine like Coveo to Lucidworks? Well, we have connectors for all kinds of different data sources. So if you're connecting to a given data source, you can pretty much swap to that data source. Obviously, any search applications that use a different search systems APIs, you'd have to swap those to ours potentially. But we've got a lot of experience in helping people do that efficiently. So it's not something that you should be afraid of. Be happy to have someone get back to you in more detail about that and what those projects usually look like. Here's another question. How does Fusion prevent a feedback loop from promoting a poor option? Basically, clicks on something bad equals more clicks. And I'm going to let you have that one, Nick.
That's a great one. This is when I work a bit with the folks at Reddit, and they call this the rich get richer problem, where if you're having this loop that increases pushing the results that have lots of clicks toward the top, but if it happened to have been bad and just got some good clicks early on, then suddenly it's near the top of results and it gets even more clicks and it stays there forever. Yes, that's a valid concern. And there's a couple different ways. First of all, we make sure that all of our default aggregations have a pretty solid time decay factor in them. So clicks now are relevant now, but in the future, if there aren't more clicks, then they're going to decay away. So if people really do notice that they're not seeing the good thing near the top and they start clicking on item number 2, this is kind of the reverse problem that we talked about earlier. If they start getting a lot of clicks on the second result that is better than the first result, it's going to bump the first result down to the second, and then eventually that one's going to get bumped down even further, and it'll drop its way down. But there also is there needs to be rank debiasing, which is kind of a proprietary aspect of this that we have a couple different approaches for, and it tends to be tailored to the individual environment because people's UIs are different, and there's a different. You have to keep track of whether the first, if you've got 10 blue links on original Google search or whatever, you've got a very clear notion of where people are likely to click. If you've got a paneled display, it may be different. So it's different for everybody. but you have to effectively take into account the bias of the position on the page into how you utilize the clicks there. And we do take care of that.
All right. So we have another question. How do you measure the quality and relevance, precision and recall of the search results Fusion provides?
Well, we got a couple different ways we do that. We have an entire A/B testing experimentation framework that ships with Fusion that will provide you the ability to run tests of different query pipelines or search experiences for your users. And it'll provide reporting. You can provide a threshold to say, I want only 1% using this variant, or another 1% using another variant, and it will continue running the experiment until you have statistical significance. You have results that show you can clearly tell one is better. There are graphs that will be presented. There's an entire UI around this. But in general, we have a lot of click-through rate tracking information that is shown. There are a couple different metrics in the case where you're talking about clicks. In the omnichannel, in the retail market, you typically don't have known items that are known to be good for this query. You maybe have them for a few results, but you don't have them in general. So we don't generally use a lot of kind of gold standard search relevance ranking. We do have it available, but we tend to find that most of our customers tend to work more on how do I optimize for getting the proper number of click-through rate as a function of position.
All right, there's another question. Is there a threshold on the amount of traffic for AI to be effective? This is with reference to some retail sites with low traffic. So I'm going to say there is and there isn't, meaning some things like the straight boosting based on clicks, where a result gets boosted because it gets clicked more than the top result and what have you, will be pretty useful for most any site. I think that when we get into some of the more specific recommenders, these will be most useful for your most loyal customers. If you don't have very many loyal customers that we can get the click patterns and what have you on, there'll be these sort of approaches will probably be a little less useful for you. But at least the sort of core search relevance boosting stuff will be useful for just about any site.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, especially at least in the retail domain. For the intranet site, maybe the traffic is so low at that point that you kind of need to use different approaches. But in places where you're getting clicks, click boosting is generally always going to be pretty good for a base starter, even on low volume sites. Agreed.
All right. Well, I think with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. I thank you guys for coming to our presentation. There's some other resources that are on this thank you slide, and we'll of course have this recording available to all of you later. Janessa, do you want to wrap up?
Yes, thanks Andy and Jake. That was great. So like Andy said, everyone who registered for this webinar will receive a link to the recording shortly. And if we didn't have time to answer your questions here, please look out for a note from someone from the Lucidworks team. And if you have any questions, feel free to email events@lucidworks.com. Thanks again for joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed the webinar. Thanks, everyone.